The word carbohydrate gets thrown around a lot, and a lot of people don't actually know the various types of carbohydrates that we consume. And in this video, I want to give you a breakdown of the 3 main types of carbohydrates. Okay, so our main grouping is carbohydrates. So that's a long word to spell out on the board. There we go. And there are 3 main types, like I said. There are sugars, there are starches, and there are fibers. And notice that each of these words are plural because there's different types of sugars, there's different types of starches, and there's different types of fibers as well. However, what makes all of these molecules similar is they have a very similar base unit. Okay, so sugars, when we talk about sugars, we're typically talking about this sugar right here, which is glucose. And you'll notice as I talk about starches and fiber, they are made up of this building block of glucose. Okay, so glucose, when we talk about blood sugar, we're talking about glucose, and it's a main component in a lot of foods as well. So this right here is something called a monosaccharide, a single sugar. Okay, another type of sugar is something called a disaccharide. Okay, di as in 2. Okay, so you'll notice that in this molecule there are 2 sugar molecules within its structure. Okay, so this one actually contains glucose and fructose bonded together. Fructose is also known as fruit sugar. It's the main sugar we find in fruit. And together, this disaccharide is actually going to make up a disaccharide called sucrose. And you've probably heard of the word sucrose before. Sucrose is actually found in a lot of foods as well. Think of like white sugar you put in your coffee. Table sugar is what we call it. Okay? When we talk about sugars, we're talking about monosaccharides or disaccharides. When we consume foods that are high in sugar, they don't need to be broken down very much because they're already at the base unit level, or we only need to break down 1 bond. So when you eat foods that are high in sugar, they get into your blood right away and spike your blood sugar right away. I'm not saying sugars are bad. Sugars can absolutely be part of a healthy diet, but when we consistently consume foods that are really high in it, that might promote some issues with blood sugar regulation. Okay? Starches, like I mentioned, are also made up of this base molecule of glucose. But you'll notice that starches are formed from long chains of those, well, that's supposed to be a hexagon too, of those glucose molecules. And I'm actually drawing just one type of starch. Starches can also be quite branched as well. Okay? The 2 main types of starch are something called amylose, okay, which is not as highly branched, or not branched, and also there's another type of starch called amylopectin. Okay? And those are the 2 main types of starch. When foods are really high in starch and just starch, they actually get broken down pretty quickly too. So think of like eating potatoes or eating rice. If there's no fiber mixed in there or other nutrients mixed in there, all I got to do is break these bonds. And once those bonds are broken, again, my blood sugar spikes quite heavily. I'm not saying starch is bad, but what I do recommend is when you are consuming foods with sugars or starches, these are coming from whole foods. Because usually whole foods have combinations of sugars and starches and fiber in a way that our body can process well and handles well as well, and don't tend to spike our blood sugar as much. Okay? There's different types of fiber as well, but fiber, again, is made up of these chains of glucose molecules. And you might be wondering, Deanna, why did you not put any bonds between these? Well, fiber, what makes it different than starch is that fiber has this different type of bond holding those adjacent glucose molecules together. And the human body lacks the enzymes, so our body can easily break these bonds down, no problem, but the human body lacks the enzymes that allows me to break down these bonds. I cannot break down those bonds easily. So fiber, whether soluble or insoluble, passes through the upper digestive tract pretty much unchanged, although our bacteria in our large intestine can process that a little bit further. Okay, so to review, there are three main types of carbohydrates: sugars, starches, and fibers. Carbs are good, carbs are fine. I know a lot of people are scared of carbohydrates. I am not. What I would recommend though, if you are consuming carbohydrates, ideally consume them within whole foods. That usually has them in the quantities and mixtures and combined with other nutrients that our body processes well, it handles well, don't tend to spike our blood sugar as much. And especially if you're getting sources of carbohydrates that are whole in nature, not very processed, they tend to be higher in fiber. And when you consume sources of carbohydrates that are higher in fiber, the whole digestion of these other ones and breakdown of the sugars and starches is slower, and we get less of a blood sugar response.